Hey folks, tonight I'm going to do The Land of the Blind, The Illusion of Freedom in America. We're going to start with Congress. Perhaps the most notorious offenders and most obvious culprits of the creation of the corporate state. Congress has proven itself to be both inept and avaricious, obvious champions of an authoritarian system that is systematically dismantling their constituents' fundamental rights. Congress, Congress's most grievous behavior, however, is its failure to bring the president to task. For all intents and purposes, now operates above the law. The precedent set during the Bush administration of the congressman going along with senseless and illegal White House policies has turned the office of the president into an untouchable, unstoppable force. The president, despite having ridden into office on a wave of optimism and the promise of a new America free of evil or free of civil liberty abuses, President Obama has proven to be a more effective manipulator of the American people than his predecessors. His presidency has been defined by kill lists, the murder of civilians, and secret drone strikes, the assassination of American citizens, the continued operation of Gitmo, the championing of warrantless surveillance of American citizens, and most recently, the funneling of arms to Al Qaeda backed rebels in Syria. The Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, once our last refuge of justice, the one governmental body really capable of rolling back the slowly emerging tyranny enveloping America, has instead become the champion of the American police state, absolving government and corporate officials of their crimes while relentlessly punishing the average American for exercising his or her rights. Consider that in the past month alone, the justices have determined that criminal suspects who are supposed to be treated as innocent until proven guilty may have their DNA forcibly extracted from them by police. They have decided that staying silent while the police question you may be considered evidence of guilt, despite the Fifth Amendment's protection against self incrimination and the well established right to remain silent. They have also recently ruled that gay lesbian marriage is now law of the land. Now, I've got no problem with that, but, well, a lot of people do. Siding with the president in advocating and defending homosexual marriage, yeah. The media. Of course, uh, this tremor of total control would be completely ineffective uh, without a propaganda machine provided by the world's largest corporation. Besides showing shoving drivel down our throats in every possible uh, moment, the so-called news agencies are supposed to act as bulwarks against government propaganda have instead become the mouthpiece of the state, much like Pravda and Investiza in the former Soviet Union. From championing the invasion of Iraq based upon absolute fabrication of the final support of all surveillance state policies and the demoralization of whistleblowers like Edward Snowden and Bradley Manning, the pundits have that pollute our airwaves are as best court jesters and at worst propagandists for the huge false reality, the matrix, created by the American government, the American people. Of course, the most superior engine in the world still requires some form of energy to bring it to life and maintain it. And in this particular mechanism, we the people serve that vital function. We are the petrol that powers the motion for good or bad. We now belong to a permanent underclass in America. It doesn't matter what you call us. Uh, chattel, slaves, worker bees, drones, it's all the same. But what matters is that we are expected to march in lockstep and submit to the will of the state in all matters, public and private. Though our complicity in matters large and small, we have allowed an out of control corporate state apparatus to take over every element of American society. Our failure to remain informed about what is taking place in our government, to know and exercise our rights, to vocally protest, to demand accountability on part of our government representatives, on the part of our government representatives, and in circumstances to care about the plight of our fellow Americans has been our downfall. Having allowed ourselves to descend into darkness, refusing to see what is really happening, happily trading the truth for false promises of security and freedom, we have allowed the police state to emerge and to flourish. Life in the Matrix is about to turn very ugly for the American people. Can a nation of clueless sheeple survive? Michael Snyder recently wrote about 17 surveys about how dumbed down and ignorant of current realities many Americans are. Are we too stupid to continue as a nation? That may seem like a harsh question, but I think that it is one we need to ask. Even though we have more access to information today than ever before, it seems the U.S. population just keeps becoming more ignorant. At what point does a society become so dumbed down that it can no longer function effectively? We like to complain about our leaders, but the truth is that we are the ones that elected them. We are the reflection of those who we are as a society. As Joseph D. Mastrati noted in the early 19th century, in a democracy, you get the leaders you deserve. And when you compare Barack Obama, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and John Boehner to men like George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and Andrew Jackson, they don't fare so well. Sadly, the truth is that most of our founding fathers would not have a prayer of being elected today. Instead, they would be labeled as crazy extremists for insisting we follow the U.S. Constitution. In our entertainment-addicted society, Lady Gaga would have much greater chance of being elected president today than George Washington would. That's how far we have fallen. Perhaps you think this is overly pessimistic. Perhaps you think that we should have more faith in the American people. Well, just consider the evidence. The following surveys prove that a large percentage of population is made up of totally clueless sheeple. One survey found that 56% of Americans believe that it is okay for the government to track the telephone records of millions of Americans in order to keep us safe. Apparently, those people have never heard of the Fourth Amendment. When Bush Jr. was president, 61% of Democrats considered NSA surveillance to be unacceptable. Now that Obama is in the White House, only 34% of them consider it to be unacceptable. 67% of Americans support the use of unmanned drones in homeland security missions inside the United States. What's next? Will there be security robots that stand in the corner and watch us as we eat dinner with our families? Close to 1/3 of all Americans would be willing to submit to a TSA body cavity search in order to fly. 20% of all government workers and 26% of all Obama supporters consider the Tea Party to be the biggest terror threat that America is facing. 89.7% of Americans believe they are eating a healthy diet. Meanwhile, approximately 36% of all Americans are obese. 29% of Americans believe that cloud computing involves an actual cloud. One survey found that 42% of all Americans are unaware that Obamacare is law. The average American watches 28 hours of television every week. According to a survey conducted by the National Geographic Society, 63% of all Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 cannot find the nation of Iraq on a map, in spite of the fact that we have been in a war there for 10 years. Close to 25% of all Americans do not know the United States declared independence from Great Britain. We are the most doped up nation in history of the planet. A survey conducted by the Mayo Clinic found that 70% of all Americans are on at least one prescription drug. An astounding 20% of all Americans are on at least 5 prescription drugs. 48% of all Americans do not have any emergency supplies stored up at all. One survey found that 51% of all Americans agree with this statement. It is necessary to give up some civil liberties in order to make the country safe from terrorism. One survey found that 51% of all Americans agree with this statement. It is, okay, I've already said that, I'm sorry. According to Bloomberg survey, only 16% of Americans believe that the Federal Reserve should be abolished. 29% of all Americans cannot recall the name of the vice president of the country. In 2008, the American people voted to send Barack Obama to the White House. After 4 years of watching everything he did during his first term, the American people turned around and gave him another 4 years. As a nation, we no longer seem to care much about what the U.S. Constitution actually says. What our politicians tell us is that they want to ignore large sections of the Constitution. We just shrug and go along with it. Over 80% of the people have never even read the U.S. Constitution or have any idea what it says. And we have completely abandoned the values and the principles that this country was founded on. Our society bears very little resemblance to 18th century America, and we like it that way. We like to think that we have progressed far beyond where they were, but the truth is that our country is coming apart at the seams all around us. Why the old America is gone and not likely to come back. Editor's note. Following excerpt is drawn from a provocative article by a Jewish rabbi from New Jersey. It discusses our nation is fundamentally and irreversibly changing. The article appeared in the Israel National views and is directed to Jewish readership. Ralph Steven Gruzmunski is the spiritual leader of Congregation B'nai Ushri, and okay. Anyways, the rabbi asserts that the first reason Mitt Romney lost last November was the power of the welfare state to buy votes to be giving away free stuff. As a champion of socialism, Obama had a big advantage in that regard. The first part of his analysis is omitted for space because he gives too little weight to Romney's own fondness for the welfare state. But much of the rabbi's analysis in the second half of his article is on the mark. We now come to the second reason why Romney lost, the inescapable conclusion that the electorate is ignorant and uninformed. Indeed, it does not pay to be an informed voter, because most other voters, the clear majority, are unintelligent and easily swayed by emotion, raw populism, and government-controlled media propaganda. That is the indelicate way of saying that too many people vote with their emotions and not their heads. That is why Obama did not have to produce a second term agenda or even defend his first term record. He needed only to portray Mitt Romney as a rapacious capitalist who throws elderly women over a cliff when he is not just snatching away their cancer medication while starving the poor and cutting taxes for the rich. Obama could get away with saying that Rama wants the rich to play by a different set of rules without ever defining what those different rules were, with saying that the rich pay their fair share. Yeah. Similarly, Obama or his surrogates could bring back blacks, that a Romney victory could lead them back to chains and proclaim that women, that their abortionists and birth control would be taken away. He could appeal to Hispanics that Romney would have alienated all and arrested all. I'm having a hard time reading this because the print's not great. This is a photocopied thing. Can a nation of clueless sheeple survive? Michael Snyder recently wrote about 17 surveys that show how dumbed down and ignorant. I've already read that. I need to go to the next page. Sorry, folks, I don't have a good camera right now, and I'm having to do everything via webcam. So if you bear with me. And Obama could not be defeated with his record and his socialist vision of America, in which free stuff seduces voters, it is hard to envision any change in the future. The road to Hillary Clinton in 2016 and to European socialist economy, like the economies that are collapsing totally today in Europe, is paved. The 2012 election should be a wake-up call to Jews and all Americans. There is no permanent empire, nor is there an enduring haven for Jews anywhere in exile. The American empire began to decline in 2007. and the deterioration has been exacerbated in the last 6 years. The 2012 election only hastened that decline. Society is permeated with sloth, greed, envy, and material excess. It has lost its moorings and its moral foundations. The takers outnumber the givers, and that will only increase in years to come. The Occupy riots across the country in the last 2 years were mere dress rehearsals for the lies ahead. Years of unrest sparked by the increasing discontent of the unsuccessful who want to seize the fruits and the bounty of the successful. They do not appreciate the slow pace of redistribution. The problems we face today are there because the people who work for a living are outnumbered by those who vote for a living. The 2012 election proved one thing. It is that the old America is gone, and sad for the world, it is not coming back. In conclusion, as the American people continue in their slumber, Big Brother continues to accelerate his police state agenda on both the national and local level. There are now 80,000 police SWAT team raids, that's right, 80,000, across America, conducted against Americans each year, mostly by paramilitary trained and equipped local police, and the vast majority of those raids are against innocent suspects. The number of innocent victims who are shot in these raids is growing rapidly. We are now being encouraged by both federal and local enforcement to report the suspicious activities of our neighbors to authorities. In Palm Beach County, Florida, the sheriff is setting up a 24-hour hotline for people to report on their neighbors, and especially anyone who hates America. A couple of years ago, the government set up a See Something, Say Something program to train Americans, as in East Germany or the former Soviet Union, to spy on one another. Posters with government reporting phone numbers are now posted in most airports and bus and train stations across America and on many public bulletin boards. It has now been revealed that the government is monitoring every piece of mail we send. According to the New York Times, 160 billion photographs of our mail, the exteriors of each envelope, were sent to the government last year under the Mail Isolation Control and Tracking Program. The mail of thousands of problem citizens or people of interest is given special attention or scrutiny. That is, it is opened and photographed. Does this sound like East Germany under the Stasi? Edward Snowden is not the only NSA employee to speak out about the government's spying activities. William Binney, a 30-year veteran of the NSA, resigned recently from the NSA and revealed Operation Stellar Wind, set up as a terrorist surveillance program after 9/11, which has intercepted and recorded 15 to 20 trillion communications between individuals, businesses, and governments worldwide over the past 12 years. The Senate Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act includes a requirement for the Department of Homeland Security to establish a comprehensive biometric exit data system at America's 10 largest airports within 3 years, and at all 30 of America's international airports by 2019. The Immigration Reform Act is also mandating biometric national ID cards for anyone, not just immigrants, who wishes to work in America. Do you feel the noose tightening in every way? The great American police state is being implemented right before our eyes, and the great majority of Americans have been so dumbed down and are so brain dead that they cannot even see it, or they enthusiastically support these measures because they are for our protection and security. So the question is worth pondering. Is America morphing into the new evil empire? Just a little more to think about, folks. Peace out.